Hi, my name is Benjamin. I'm 9 years sober. I continue every day to look to help others, to give back to those who have helped me, and to the community that's given me everything back into my life.
I'm Heather Champion. I'm a licensed mental health counselor with a private practice. I met Ben while working at an outpatient treatment center called The Retreat that's not here anymore. We've maintained our friendship since then and enjoy taking time to talk about therapy and our lives as champions.
Disclaimer: the content of this video is intended for informational use only. It is in no way intended as a replacement for medical or psychological advice. Should you have a medical or psychological issue, please consult with a medical professional. Hey everybody, this is Real Champions Podcast. My name is Heather Champion.
Hi, I am Benjamin Champion.
Little pause there. Ben's trying to get himself caught up so he can participate and pay attention. And the squeaking and the little noise in the background, that little one back there, her name is Sammy. She is here today for her massage, so she's going to hang out in the background. So anyway, we started last week kind of talking to Ben a little bit about some of the stuff that I usually do with my clients, help them understand why we struggle to make change. So the next thing I would typically do with somebody is something I call Amy's story. So Ben, do you ever remember me doing Amy's story back when the days when we used to work together or no?
Yes, I remember a lot of clients would always tell me a little bit about it throughout groups and everything. I never got to fully sit in though.
Yeah, yeah. So Amy's story is one of the lessons that I give to people to help them to see what is going on for all of us when we're in a heightened state of stress and what changes biologically in our systems so that we understand, what are some of the things that are going to happen to me and how can I get myself out of it when I find myself there. So we will start. Hold on, let me do this. This is Amy. She had been sober for 3 months. She had a job, was going to AA meetings, and working with her sponsor. As part of her service work, Amy was regularly heading back to the treatment facility where she had initially gotten treatment to provide support to those who were struggling. One person she tried to help was not receptive. And when she visited this person, it made her feel kind of down. Amy kept going back to help this person without acknowledging her feelings or sharing them with. She thought by continuously going back, she was doing what she was supposed to be doing, and it would get better on its own. She often spoke about how kind and caring the staff at the treatment facility were to her, but never stopped to talk to them. Amy justified this by thinking they're too busy or they won't remember me. One day she left the facility and took the bus to work. Upon arriving at the facility, at the work, she found out one of her shifts had gotten cut. She began to worry about making less money. Amy complained to her friends, who agreed that the shift cut was wrong. They co-signed her belief that the world is unfair. Angry and resentful, Amy called her mother after the end of her shift and found out her dog is sick and may need to be put down. Amy was devastated and crying. A friend heard her crying and came to comfort her. Amy told her friend about her day and everything that had happened. The next thing they knew, they were driving in the car to meet a drug dealer. So, what happened to Amy?
Amy
Overall, what
didn't
happened?
talk.
What happened to Amy? Overall, what happened?
Amy allowed the stressors of day-to-day life to impact her decision making in the long run.
It's really complicated. Just straight up, what happened to Amy? What happened there?
She relapsed.
She relapsed, right? Very, very simple. She relapsed. So I'm putting up my whiteboard because we're going to use the whiteboard to talk about what exactly happened to Amy. And I am going to use some different colors to indicate what happened. Okay, so Amy relapsed. There's a few points in this story where Amy could have probably avoided that relapse. What's the first place, location-wise, that she was when she could have made a change? What do you think?
She was in the treatment center, no?
Right, she was in a treatment center. I'm gonna call that TC. This is where she was. Well, while she was there, right, she could have done something to change the outcome of this story. What's something that she could have done? You're a guy in recovery, you know what recovery is all about. What could she have done differently?
Speak up.
Speak up how?
Um, she initially, when she got the message of the shift cut, she could have spoken to the manager.
Was she at the treatment center when that happened? Think back to the
Oh, yeah,
story.
true.
When she was at the treatment center, what could she have done?
She got to talk to more people and more open.
Like who?
The clients.
She was already talking to clients, and that's what was making her feel kind of
Well,
down.
staff members, like the
Yeah,
other staff members that she said
right,
that she were very kind to her originally.
right. Oh, this one is not going to be as neat as it was the last time. She could have come and talked to staff, right? She could have talked to anybody. So, just like a little piece of tidbit on this. This is a true story, Amy story. It took place when I used to work at a full continuum of care, and I was the inpatient therapist. Do we know what a full continuum of care is?
Yep, or they go from detox the whole way through.
Right. So we have different levels. We go from detox, we do inpatient, res, we do PHP, IOP, usually two levels of IOP, and then we have also, and that particular facility, which they don't exist anymore like this, we had, what do you call it, three quarters and halfway houses, right? So we
Hmm.
had everything, the full spectrum. I was an inpatient therapist. And while I was there as an inpatient therapist, I would get a list of people who were living at three quarters and halfway that were doing really well. And those people were part of our contact list as peer support when we were trying to do an AMA block. What's an AMA block, Ben? Do you know what that is?
Getting people not to leave against medical advice, speaking to them, hoping to get them to get through the withdrawal phase, usually.
Right. And so why do we do AMA blocks and why do we have to have a protocol for how to handle an AMA block?
And we want patients to realize that they have a real opportunity to change their life. And in the early stages of recovery, you're most vulnerable for unfortunate decisions to be made.
Correct. So like once somebody has gone through a detox protocol, their tolerance for whatever they used to use is a lot less. If they walk out, they're likely to go back into whatever pattern of use that they were doing before they came to treatment. And if they use at that level, it's a very high probability that they will overdose and potentially die. So we don't want that to happen. So we have a bunch of protocols that we do for AMA blocks. One of those is bringing in peer support to talk to somebody. And that's what I use this girl for. Her name's not really Amy. I've been doing this for so long. This was over 10 years ago when the story took place. So I don't even remember what her name is anymore. We just call her Amy now. But she was living in a halfway house with a bunch of my other former clients. I had her for inpatient, and I also had a bunch of other girls that she lived with. And I would call all of my old girls if I was having somebody that I needed to do an AMA block with. All of the other girls came up to talk to us we were on the third floor of our building. They came up to the unit to talk to us, except for Amy. What do you think it was like for the other girls when they came up to talk to us?
For them, I think it'd be encouraging to be able to give back.
Well,
Um,
yeah, not just to give back. It was like majority of the time we're calling these girls, it's for AMA block. It's for peer support on an AMA block. How often is peer support successful on an AMA block? Very, very infrequently.
yeah.
Very infrequently. So like we're basically throwing these girls to the wolves. And
Yep. A little
right,
nerve-wracking.
right. It's like they're not expected to do much at this point because we're pretty like, yeah, we're just basically we're throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what's gonna stick.
Yep.
And a lot of times, like they would come in and they would talk to me like, Heather, I went and talked to so and so, and it didn't go very well. And I'm really sorry. And I would say, it's okay. We're just throwing spaghetti at the wall at this point in time. I have two master's degrees in psychology. I can't get through to this person. I really didn't think that you would either. We're just trying and seeing if anything will work. And usually that made them feel a little bit better, like, because we call that normalization. I normalize their experience for them. This person's really difficult. I get it. But the other thing
Mhm.
that we would do is, for people that have never been in this environment before, what we're talking about with the full continuum of care, it's kind of like when you go back to inpatient, it's kind of like going back to kindergarten, meeting your kindergarten teacher when you're a senior, right? And so what that experience is like for a lot of us is like, oh my God, you look fabulous. We're so proud of you. So we really pumped everybody up. If somebody came back that was out there at halfway and three quarters to work and help us out, and we knew it was kind of like a scenario that was not going to work out terribly well, we always made them feel good about themselves. We helped to highlight like the what they've been able to do, help them to see, listen, like you've come really far, we're really proud of you. I remember when you first came here, you looked terrible. Now look at you. You've got a car, you've got a job, you have all these other things going on for you, right? So we would try to pump them up and make them feel good. So coming to talk to us, right, would have been one of the best things that she could have done that would really reverse the negative feeling that she had that about coming to that treatment center. Do we remember why she said she didn't come to talk to us?
She thought we were too busy.
All right. So do we show it too busy? What else?
Mm, Too busy or wouldn't remember her.
Right. Won't remember. I'm just gonna put that as remember. And then I'm going to put in quotes here. There was something else that she said was supposed to. We're going to come back to that. I'm going to put in quotes supposed. Okay. So she's in recovery. There's also other things that she could do, right? Everybody in recovery is told that they should what when they feel bad?
Reach out, talk to somebody, go
Talk
to a
to
meeting.
Go to a meeting, talk to support, right? So she could also have talked to support. RT. All right. All right, she did not do that. What did she do? Do we remember?
She let the day go on
Well,
and then proceed. Oh, well, she called her mom, which proceeded to give her more bad
that
news.
wasn't the
No?
next thing that she did. What was the next thing she did? She left the treatment center, and what did she do?
I have really bad retention. No, at some point she got in the car with her friend. That was at the end.
That's at the very end, right? What did she do when she left the treatment center, though? She went someplace, right?
Yeah, didn't she go to work?
She went to work. How'd she get to work?
Oh, she took the train.
She didn't take the train. She took the bus, but
That
close.
one.
So she got on the bus
I'm a perfect client for you.
to work. Oh, RK. Okay, that was my bad. She took the bus to work. While she's sitting on that bus, could she have done something to help herself feel a little bit better? What do you think?
Yep. Should have reached out.
She could have talked to a support, correct?
Oh, yeah, this was 10 years ago, so even phones were different.
Right. But, you know, the thing is that I used to take the train to work when I worked in Manhattan, and I know that if I sat down on the train and got on the phone with somebody and talked to them verbally, like it would have been disturbing for other people. Other people would have gotten angry at me. So, what's something else that we could do that maybe doesn't involve anybody else that we could do on the bus? What do you think?
I mean, change our mindset, maybe pick up a newspaper or try to reframe our thinking.
And
Uh,
those are all examples of, do you know what those are examples of?
Positive self-talk.
No, it's another example of an internal coping strategy.
Yeah, those words.
Internal coping. I'm going to call it ICS so I don't have to write that much because this is a hard thing to write with. Okay. Internal coping strategy. She could have done some sort of an internal coping strategy. Listen to music, reframing thinking, you know, at positive self-talk, any of those things. It doesn't say it in the store, but what do we think that she probably was doing while she was sitting on that bus?
Probably just ruminating on all worst case scenarios.
So what I call that is stewing
Stewing.
and her shit. She's just sitting there stewing away in her own caca, right? So she's sitting there in the bus, she's stewing, and then the next thing that happens is that she gets to work and she finds out her shifts are cut. So the funny thing about this is I used to live down there in South Florida with you.
Yep.
This story takes place in June.
Hmm.
What happens in June?
All the old people can't leave.
Everybody leaves. It's like all of a sudden you can get places, right?
Yep.
It's like, oh my God, I could get everywhere. This is great. So if you work in a restaurant, what typically happens though?
This is the time of year where you gotta expect shift cuts.
Correct. And the funny thing is that after she relapsed and came back to inpatient, we talked about that shift cut. You know what? She had noticed that she was making less money per shift and said to her boss, maybe you should cut our shifts because we're all making less money. And if we worked less shifts, less on a shift, then we would make more money for the 1 or 2 days that we work. So she had actually talked to her boss about doing this prior to it.
Hmm.
But for some reason, when she came into work that day, that was not in her head. And she remember her talking to me about this and being like, "This is so weird," because we'd already talked about it, and I'd already told him that I thought it would be a good idea to cut the shifts. So if if that was the case, right, she could have talked to her boss, right, when she got to work when she saw that. So she could have talked to the boss. Or like there's a pattern on this side. She could have talked to some sort of a support, right?
Checked in with colleagues.
Right. Well, hold on. What did she do? Do you remember?
She called her mom.
No, she called her mom after work. What did she do when she
Oh.
was at work, though?
Mm.
Here, I'll reread that part of the story to you. Um, Upon arriving at work, she found out one of her shifts had been cut. She began to worry about making less money. Amy complained to her friends who agreed that the shift cut was wrong. They co-signed her belief that the world is unfair. What
So she
happened?
sat for hours with rumination.
After
She
she
was
was
her
ruminating.
negative thoughts were co-signed, and she sat with them.
Well, after she sat and she stewed her own shit, right? She was ruminating for that. And then she went and she spewed it, right? That negative stuff that she was complaining.
Hmm.
What is complaining?
Not to get you anywhere.
Right? There's no, it's people are like, oh, it's venting. Like, no, it's not venting. Complaining is stewing in your own shit, just doing it verbally, and you're pulling people in, right? And another way to kind of look at this is that we are looking for someone to co-sign our bullshit, to use a term from AA, right? My BS,
Yep.
right? Co-sign my bullshit. In other words, though, I'm also looking for someone to confirm how I feel. So another way
True.
is more of the psychological way of saying it to confirm how I feel.
The proper way.
Right. Oh, I. So we're going to hold on to all of this because this is important to understand what's going on for Amy because this is actually a really good example of something. So we find out that the dog is sick. And then the biggest red flag of all, she went out with her friend. I'm going to take this. So I'm going to put the word friend and quotes. Why am I
Mm.
doing that?
As a real friend, wouldn't be driving with you to the drug dealers.
Well, just like I said, I got a list of people who were doing well in out in IOP and what do you call it? Halfway and three quarters. I also got a list of people who were not. Guess who was on list number two? This
The
this
friend.
this so-called friend here. And when she relapsed and came back, I was like, girlfriend, you knew. Like this chick was up to no good. We all knew. Like I never even really met her before, but I knew she was up to no good. So tell me, like, how did you end up hanging out with her? And she said, I don't know, Heather, but at the moment, it felt like she was my friend. It felt like she was safe. I'm like, you knew not to hang out with her, but for whatever reason, at this moment, it felt like this person was safe. So we see something going on in this story. And the reason why I like to do it this way is because it seems pretty clear, right? There is a point in time where this story really changes, where something that she had talked about, right, with her boss turned into something that was really very negative, right? Right here, this shift cut. She saw this as a rejection. Oh my God. Oh, she saw this one as a rejection, right? This was a big rejection for her. And because she felt so rejected, she kind of spun out of control and
Hmm.
felt like she really wasn't in a good place, all right? And she wasn't in a safe place. So, starting from around this place in here, Amy was not safe. She was no longer in a safe environment. And what we see going on down here at the bottom section, we're interpreting things that are innocuous as dangerous and rejection. We're looking for people to co-sign how we feel. We're looking for people to confirm that I'm being seen and heard. Danger, things I normally see as dangerous are no longer seen as dangerous. They're seen as safe. The things that are safe are now seen as dangerous. These are all signs and symbols of being in fight or flight mode. And when we're there, it's a biological process that we're experiencing. and we can't really pull ourselves out of it. And if you're on the outside, so this is one of the things, one of my big issues with AA, you're on the outside. I could talk to her when she's up here because she's in her verbal processing system up here. Let's call that right there, processing. She's up here in verbal processing. We can have a conversation here. She gets down here below this line. Oh, we're not talking. This is fight or flight. And when people say, well, you should have called someone when you felt that way, no, you can't call somebody because you can't speak. Because when fight or flight is being enacted, then you have less oxygen going to your Broca's and Wernicke's area of your brain. The oxygen is being used out by other parts of your body. And so expecting someone to have a conversation when they're in fight or flight is completely stupid. We can't have a conversation about anything because there's no oxygen going to the part of your brain that makes language or understands language. And literally, quite literally, the only words you can hear is what confirms how you feel. That's it. And so, most likely that day, right, Amy saw that shift cut and walked around that restaurant looking for someone to co-sign how she felt. And the only people that would do that were people who also were in that fight or flight place.
Mhm.
And so the only way we can pull somebody out of fight or flight, and I don't know how many other people understand this, is that we need to use reflective listening to tell people what we hear them saying to us. We can't say, oh, I hear you, man. We have to say, oh, so it sounds like you're angry right now. Is that correct? So it sounds like you feel like this person's not listening to you. Is that correct? It sounds like you feel like this is very unfair. Is that correct? And keep repeating things back to them. The other thing that we can do in those situations is to help somebody to recognize what their body language is saying. So one of the big things is what I used to do when I was doing an AMA block would be to talk about, like, usually we're standing outside in the hot Florida sun, and whoever I'm talking to has got some black hoodie on and big heavy jeans, right? And it's like 100 degrees outside. And I'm going, bro, it's hot. Like, you're sweating bullets. Do you want to go stand in the shade? And so it kind of in that moment, they're like, kind of like looking at their body going, oh yeah, I am sweating pretty bad. Because the thing is that fight or flight feels very out of body. And so we don't always know what's going on, and we don't feel like we are being seen or being heard. If anyone's ever gotten into an argument with somebody and where they said, yeah, I said, what I thought they were saying, and they start screaming at, you're not listening to me. It's like, because you're not conveying that information to them in the way that they're able to hear it. It's kind of like, I talked to a bunch of different people about it. The best way that we can describe it is kind of like Peanuts, in the cartoon Peanuts, is like when they have an adult talking of like, wah, 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 wah. That's basically what you're hearing, unless you're hearing what you're thinking and feeling. So that is the way that this biologically why we make mistakes. And all relapses happen because we're in fight or flight. Whether we recognize it or not, we are in fight or flight if we relapse on, if it's Ben and Jerry's, if it's alcohol, if it's crack, doesn't matter. It's all those things make us feel good for a certain amount of time, right? It's all because we're somewhere in fight or flight. We cannot control because of the fact that we end up going into behavior patterns that are most practiced for that emotional kind of framework. Like those emotions, we've practiced this particular set of behaviors and skills so that is exactly what we go into. This is why first responders practice. This is why sports stars practice, because when they're in the middle of what they're doing, this is why soldiers also practice. When they're in the middle of what they're doing, they go into fight or flight. Their adrenaline gets to a certain height. And so they can't think and they can't really talk. So if they practice the skill set, they're going to go into the skill set automatically without needing to have any thought behind it. This is the reason why we do all these things. All right. So remember in the beginning of the story, we said that the reason why Amy didn't come to talk to any of us staff members is because she thought we were too busy, we wouldn't remember her, or that she wasn't doing what she thought she was supposed to be doing. Remember when I said that? Okay.
Mhm.
And it's nodding. So funny thing about that is when she said that to me, first of all, I was like, honey, I was on the call too. So obviously I knew who you were, right? So the evidence is like completely, we always make time for you. You know, because you've talked to the other girls. You live with a group of girls that I also call for this particular reason, and they stop in and you guys talk about like what your experiences are like over here. I know because I talk to enough of you where I know these things, right? And so she was like, yeah, but I thought you would be disappointed. And I'm like, why would I be disappointed in you? Because you're here, you're doing well. I mean, didn't the other girls tell you? She was like, yeah, but I didn't think that that would apply to me. And I was like, okay. Yeah, what's really interesting about this, sweetie, is that this sounds an awful lot like your dad. Because the woman that she called her mom to find out about the dog being sick, was not her biological mother. That was her stepmother. Her
Mhm.
biological mother died when she was very young, and her father rushed out to get married to somebody else so that he could find somebody to raise her and take care of her because he was often too busy to take care of her, often forgot that she even existed. And when he did see her, he expected her to behave in a way that she was supposed to behave. So, without realizing it, what Amy was actually doing is she was taking her dad and projecting him out onto everybody, including me, her therapist. So, why do we make mistakes? Good question, right? So, there are things that are going on typically, right, that are blocking us from being able to do the things that we need to do. And then the other half of that is usually we are in some sort of a fight or flight state. Benjamin, any thoughts about what we just went over?
It makes a lot of sense. It's really what a lot of us go through day in and day out. And that's the thought process we have to go through as we get longer in AA. All of us kind of go through these phases of what support is or what support we need. But I remember early on in AA, yeah, that's 100%. When we're feeling something, we got to reach out, we got to talk about it.
Well, whether we're
And
feeling
those,
it or not, but we have to also kind of remove our own blinders,
oh,
right?
absolutely.
That it
Reality of the
doesn't
world
matter.
has to settle.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like when you talk about like I can't get out of bed in the morning because I'm telling myself I deserve to stay here. What is that echoing? Right? Because with Amy's story, right, she was echoing her father when she said those things, right? When she said those things to herself, even if the evidence did not support that. There was evidence around everybody else in her world that didn't support those thoughts. But for whatever reason, she couldn't let go of them. It wasn't until she relapsed and came back and we had that conversation. And it was like thinking about it afterwards, I was like, this is actually a really good story to use to help people to see how fight or flight gets enacted, but also how projection plays a role in getting fight or flight enacted. Like if I'm projecting something onto other people that's not really what's going on, and then I'm assuming things about what's going on. So we also engage in something called confirmation bias, right? So if Amy maybe came to the facility and went to talk to somebody and they were racing down to do another AMA block, let's say, and people rushed past her, she didn't know why they were rushing past her, but they didn't say hi. And so now this confirmation bias that they don't have time for her, they don't remember her.
All built in our own heads.
Right. And so one of the main things that we need to do, right, is to really understand how that happens for each of us. Why does this happen? Why do we get ourselves into these situations? And by sitting back and really looking at, and I think next time we'll go through how I use emotions cards to help people to figure out what exactly is going on in some of those situations. So maybe For next time, Ben, think of a situation where you did something where looking back at it, you can identify a better way to handle the situation. And we'll talk about it and we'll use these cards that I have here that to help you to identify what emotions and what thoughts might have been going on at that time.
Okay, I'm down.
All right, guys. Well, we're out of time for today. I think we might have gone a little bit over because I see Ben like waving to somebody who wants to come in his office. But in any event, we will see you all again next week. Thank you for listening,
Thank you guys. It was good seeing y'all.
and we'll talk to you later. Bye. Real Champions Podcast, Season 2, Episode 12, Amy's Story. What does it mean to be a champion when that's your name? The Real Champions Podcast is co-hosted by Heather Champion and Benjamin Champion. It's edited by Heather Champion. Produced by Maitri Counseling Services, all rights reserved. Questions or comments can be referred to Heather at Maitri Therapy, MAITRI-therapy.com.
You are not alone. Remember, if you or someone you know is struggling with thoughts of suicide, please call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-TALK. For local help, dial 211 on your phone to be connected to resources in your area. If you experience mental health or substance abuse issues, please call the National Alliance or Mental Health or NAMNI at 1-800-950-NAMNI. Or in a crisis, text NAMI, NAMI, to 741-741. Check out the NAMI website, nami.org, for additional resources.